Whoa, what's up, everybody? How are you? And welcome to Rocket Live. I am here with my awesome guest, Monica Dema from MD Inc. And I'm super excited because I was actually a guest on Monica's show a few months back, Mission Driven. And I'm really, really pumped to have her on the show. She's a rock star and she helps so many other people become rock stars as well. So I'm really psyched about today's conversation because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics of all time, which is content creation, something we all love doing and something we all struggle with. And it's something that's 1000% necessary to grow your business. So Monica's here to drop some serious truth bombs on all you about creating content. So Monica, welcome to Rocket Live.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm happy to be here. And again, thanks for being on my show, and I'm happy to be on your show and reciprocate.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really great. And I just want to say for everybody who's tuning in live right now, thank you guys all so much for your support. If you're watching on YouTube, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And also take a second to hit that little bell so that way you get notified every single time I drop a new video and go live. Also, please feel free to reshare this video wherever you're watching. And for everybody who's watching a replay, thank you so much for watching this. And everybody will eventually be watching or listening to this rather on the audio version. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please feel free to throw your comments and questions in the chat, and we will answer them as fast as we can. So let's get started. So Monica, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, frame it up a bit. I want to hear all about MD Inc.
Oh dear, there's so much. So what I do on a daily basis is I try to make everyone's experience on the internet just a little bit better. Whether you're, frustrated with a button not working, all the way to the content not matching the product that's being sold on an e-commerce platform,
Right.
or a mom's blog to make sure that recipes and gardening tips are all accurate and the best that they can be, so that the reader has a really great experience, whether it's me, you, or somebody that has decision-making power if it's a larger company. So it's really content driven, but user experience focused.
Right. And I think when it comes to content too, like people often, and this is just my personal experience, I tend to think people really overthink it a little bit too much because I know there's a lot of creative roadblocks. Like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? And then on top of it, well, who cares what I have to say? Who's really going to care? But like, that's not the case at all, right?
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? Because doing your first video on LinkedIn or brand video, nobody actually cares, right? They
Right.
don't, unless something's really very wrong, like you're wearing multicolor patterns and the color is off, like they really don't care. You're not that important to
Right.
really boil it down. But the importance is that you're able to convey at least one or two things for them to take away, to relate to, and or to act upon. So it does need to be mapped out and thoughtful. You can't just go up there and start flipping tables and cursing and, again, wearing mismatched patterns.
Right.
But you want to make sure you put your best foot forward, whether it's video, as you know, or audio, or the written word, which can be edited and re-edited to mean completely different things. So the first step is really just to do it.
Yeah. And that is a great that's great advice, because that's what I tell a lot of people too and it is, for most people, including myself, it is one of the hardest things, because I even remember, and I love sharing this story, but it's so true. Like, I remember signed up, I got LinkedIn Live, and when I got approved for it, it really almost took me a month before I made my first like live video. And, I've been making videos this whole time before I got LinkedIn Live, but there was something about like going live on LinkedIn. It was this like mental roadblock I had for myself. And it took me a month to get up the courage and go, you know what, I'm going to go live. And I did it. And, and I just did a very short, like 15 minutes about like what I was reading and what I was listening to and just sharing that kind of information. But once I sort of got through that, then it was like, all right, I've got this. I could totally do this.
Yeah.
What is some advice for people who are looking to get started on creating content creation?
The easiest thing to do is to just go to Google and type in things that describe your business, right? And then you can see what people are asking about or what people are searching for very easily there. It takes 5 minutes of your time. Whatever 5 minutes is worth is what it costs. And then create content around that. Could be 300 words, could be 500 words. It's something to get you started. Obviously keeping in mind good grammar and all the requirements of good writing. You want to make sure that it resonates with your audience, so that they read it, that they share it, they comment, whatever kind of call to action that you might have. So, I mean, that's the 5-minute breakdown of how you can get rid of that roadblock and just do it now.
Yeah, and I think that's really that's also really good advice, because it is that whole thing of really kind of the ideation of content and what you should be talking about. And I think when you do that little exercise, it really helps to bring it to life and like, oh, I can talk about these things and I can share these parts about my business. Like, I didn't even think of that. And I think that's often a big struggle, is like, really coming up with those ideas that, you just can't think about like right away, so you need that little bit of help.
Absolutely. But there is the opposite side, where you might be too married to what you do. And I find certain industries are very guilty of this. The higher technical industries, they want to talk about things in very technical terms, or use case law or medical journals, when really your patient or your client doesn't care about the statutes and codes and all this nonsense, right?
Right.
You have to make sure that you're resonating with your target audience, not just your peers that are also higher echelon individuals.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's really good to know, because I think that is true. Like, you can get a little too wrapped up in, your technical speak, the technical jargon. And you know this as well as I do too, that marketing speak, right? Like, I'm a big fan of saying, ditch the marketing speak and just be very real, talk in a very plain language that anybody can understand, because don't take for granted the fact that you have other people in your audience who are also of value to you, that don't necessarily do what you do, but can help connect you to those people. So the more I feel that you can make your content relatable and understandable, I feel like the better chance you have of actually having that content reach the targets, the people you want to really be reading that content.
Right. And use Apple as an example. A 3-year-old can use an iPad. So can a 3-year-old understand what you're trying to say? Maybe not. Let's try for a 10-year-old. Okay, maybe not. Maybe a 20-year-old. And if you have to be, a PhD to understand the content, maybe you've gone too far.
Yeah, you're right. If I have to take a class to like understand what you're saying, it may not be a good idea. That's a good analogy. Yeah, and I do see that a bit. And it's like, I want to engage with people's content sometimes, but it's like, I don't really understand what they're saying. So I'm not sure I want to like comment on this, because I don't know if I'm saying the right thing, or I don't even know if I've understood what I just read.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, not to put them on the spot, but it is a vulnerable experience to say, hey, I don't quite understand that. What did you mean? Right. So now it gives them the opportunity to take a step back and answer a real person, instead of just posting it on the broad internet.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about too, and actually you brought this up, and I thought it was a really good question, which was, because I know people are always trying to craft like really good posts, right? What goes into a good quality post? And I think everybody has their own style and things that they like to do, but I think that they're, a way to format it and a way to make it easier for people. So I think one of the things that you do really well is, I think you do a really great job breaking things down and explaining for people and giving people a framework. So what would be the 3 most important points of creating a social post?
So using LinkedIn as an example, because this is LinkedIn Live.
Yeah,
it's important to have context. So starting with like a quote or something meaningful, and then breaking it down. Why is that important for you to share with your thousands of followers or connections or whoever? Using meaningful hashtags, and you can certainly search for hashtag LinkedIn, any kind of thing that's related to that post or that industry. You can see what the conversation is. And then adding the right people to it. So it's a mix of relevant people, relevant hashtags, and something meaningful in the content that resonates and really gets interaction. And then once people interact, you have to interact back. It can't just be one-sided. LinkedIn is a networking platform, right? So nobody wants to be talked at or talked to. You want to talk with somebody. And that's, again, the way to make a really meaningful connection and reach your audience.
Yeah, I think people forget a lot of times that it is a conversation. It's an active conversation, and posts are conversation starters. And, I used this analogy recently in a presentation I did, which is, you have to look at, I think, social media in general and any of these sites as a campfire, right? And what do you do when you're around a campfire? You're telling stories to each other. You're sharing ideas, like you're talking, you know, and you're having a conversation. And that's what I sort of look at as like all these platforms, including like YouTube and even, you know, how Clubhouse has kind of come on now. It is still like that analogy of like that campfire. All you're doing is really talking, sitting around talking, telling stories, sharing ideas, and having a constant conversation. And it really shouldn't be one-sided. I think those are some of the best posts, is when, you know, people are posting and they're asking questions, or, you know, just being very thoughtful of creating that engagement. So you get all those comments underneath, like really get people engaged.
Right. And the way I see it too, on using LinkedIn again, if you're doing a presentation like a TEDx talk or a TED talk, right? You're in front of 200 people. You've taken the time to craft the content, your message, whatever it is that you want to say. So now if somebody's going to see it, the least they can do is comment. And now if they're commenting or questioning you, the least you can do is respond back. You wouldn't stand up at your podium and take questions and respond to zero.
Right. That's awesome. That's a great analogy there. I just want to take a quick moment here to say, hey, if anybody is joining us now on the stream, or if you've been here from the start and you have any questions for us, for Monica, you know, please feel free to throw them in the comments and we will get them here and we'll try to answer them. Or, you know, if you just want to send us some cheerful comments as well, we'll throw those up too. So whatever you're watching us on right now, yeah, please feel free to participate, and we're going to keep the conversation going. So, Monica, what, you know, I think that this year, well, I'll say not 2021, but let's just talk. I'll talk about 2020. For some reason, I still am thinking
it's all
2020. Like it feels like 1 year, a never-ending year. I think that 2020 was sort of, to me, like when you look at it, I feel like it was the explosion of content creation by people from foreign, like from everywhere. You know, I feel like everybody got into the mode of creating content, helping one another out, really sort of exploring and trying new things, which I think is really, really great. For anybody that's sort of like, you know, started doing it and is still doing it, or, you know, maybe like, what are you seeing, I guess, the most out of the content that you feel like is making the most impact? Like because you're working with a lot of different clients as well, and you work in different industries, you know, you're not just sort of one target industry. So based on kind of what you're seeing out there as far as the trends goes and what your clients are doing, like, what are you seeing to be the most engaging piece of content? Or, you know, is it just a mix?
Honestly, I'd say it's a bit of a mix, and
okay.
I have encouraged a lot of clients, and I've actually taken a lot on to do work on LinkedIn, right? Because a lot of them are B2B. The B2C clients, yeah, will do their SEO, content descriptions all day long. But now as a human, you own a business, you're an entrepreneur, you want to reach your audience. How do you best do that? Mm-hmm. So that's resonating quite a bit with their clients, and they've gotten some new leads that way. But the important thing is just doing it. So in the beginning of quarantine, when microphones were at a minimum, and then you couldn't get a webcam unless you paid hundreds of dollars for it, it was just crazy, right? So I said, you know, everyone has a cell phone. I told my clients, I'm like, just for now, try it. Get comfortable in front of a camera. Get comfortable talking to a camera. Whether there's somebody in the room or not doesn't matter. Post a 50-second video on LinkedIn and see what happens.
Right.
What's the worst that's going to happen? Nobody's going to watch it. Well, then nobody has anything to critique, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you said it so right there, is that, like, who cares? Like, put it up, because the thing is too, is if there's anything we know about content, is that shelf life, right? It's not like you're going to put this up there, and I know this, they know the adage, you know, put it on the internet's forever. But honestly, like you said at the start, like, who really cares? It's not like you're not that special in a sense. So it doesn't matter. So, I mean, and you can delete it, but like, you know, like it's here today, you get some life out of it, and it's gone. And I also too, you said something else I think is key there too, because this is something that I like to talk to people a lot, and I'm sure you encourage it too, is don't sit there and like obsess over the likes and the engagement and the comments. Like, it's cool when it starts to happen, but it's not really going to happen right away. Because I think and I think you'll agree to this, is like, it's about the consistency, right? It's about being consistent. And when you start putting out content, that's the thing that begins to build engagement and begins to build like, oh, there's somebody that puts out videos and puts out posts and pictures and asks questions to everybody. Like, you almost have to train people like that are in your audience that you're now like creating content.
A thought leader at the very least, right? And it's not, for the people out there listening, it doesn't have to be content every day related to what you do. It can be something about what you've done, whether it's volunteering like we did last month, Chris.
Yep.
Or it could be something that you did with your family, a vacation you went on, a thought you had after reading a book. It can be any number of things, because really what that does, it gets your audience to know you. And then once they know you, hopefully they like you. And then when they like you, hopefully they trust you.
Right.
And then you have a potential client, because you want to like and know and trust them too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the golden rule, right? I mean, it doesn't get more simple and basic than that people do business with people that they like and trust. I mean, that's it. You know, at the end of the day, someone, regardless of all the AI and all the automation and everything else you could do, which are great tools to be able to get in front of people, but that's the key thing there is a person, a human, still makes a buying decision at the end of the day. And that decision, whether it's based on price or not, it's still based on, hey, do I trust this person? Do I trust this site? Do I trust this company? Is this someone I actually want to like pay to help me or buy their product or whatever it is? Because, you know, still making a decision at the end of the day. So I think it's a really important tip there.
Yeah.
So we do have a comment and question in the comments here. We have Heather. Thank you for the great information. I am a geek in what I do. So how much information is too much when you are posting content? And Heather, that is an awesome question. I'm going to turn it over to the expert here.
So if it's content on LinkedIn, it needs to be bite-sizable. You don't want to write your master's thesis on a platform like that. And I think you're actually limited to 2,000 characters.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, when you're looking at like a blog, 500 words is a sweet spot. 1,000 is even better. When you start getting to 2,000 or 3,000, make that a white paper or a case study or something a little bit more meaty, and then try to get people's email to sign up to get that information from you, because now you're giving them very valuable content that's probably worth some money or some exchange of currency. So depends on what platform.
Right. Now, and you said something really cool there, is that, you know, when you get into that longer content, so say for instance, like, so I have blogs on my site that are obviously, you know, blogs are a lot longer than a social post. Can I create social content out of my blogs? Is that something I could do? Is that something you recommend doing?
Absolutely, because the content exists. I would even say you should convert that into a video, not necessarily reading it verbatim. But again, you have the content, you have the script. It's something you already believe and buy into. So why not make it a 5-minute video?
Well said. Well said. And I think that's a really great point, because it's all about, you know, reuse and repurpose content. Like if you spent time creating that blog, like there's so many other areas that you could potentially reuse that. And I also like what you said too about expanding it into something that maybe, you know, like how you said that post and monetizing it or creating it into like a white paper or ebook or something like that. You could actually take that blog and actually expand on it and maybe make it a little more meatier and have that as a lead magnet or something that people would want to pay, or, you know, so on and so forth. So I think that's a really cool way of looking at that too, which, you know, makes me think about like going back and revisiting some of the blogs I've written. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about too, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but we're still going to be on topic of content, which is, I know, and I think this has been an increased thing, and myself included, which is, I think the advent of doing a lot of live streaming and podcasting and things like that. And, you know, obviously I have this Rocket Live, which started off as like the LinkedIn Friends thing, which I've evolved into this, but I think for anybody who listens and watches this know that I not only do this as video, but then I take the audio and I re-release it as an audio podcast. Now, you also do something pretty much exactly the same. You have a show which you also stream out as video and reuse audio called Mission Driven, right? So talk to us all a little about mission driven and sort of what the purpose of that is. And then I have a couple follow-ups on that I think would be interesting for people to hear.
Yeah. So full disclosure, mission driven, the podcast has been something I've thought of for a while, but I was always coming up with excuses why I couldn't do it. Right. I didn't have the microphone. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the people. And I'm like, you know what? I really want to talk to that person on LinkedIn who could really influence my next contract.
Right.
Let me ask them to be on my show.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk, right?
Everybody does.
Platform to self-promote. And it was quarantine, COVID. You couldn't see people in person anymore.
Yeah.
So now in my mind, they have nothing to do, just like I have nothing to do. I'm home. So what's 15 minutes to them? Right. So that's kind of where it started, where they're interesting. I want to have a conversation. Maybe they can influence my future, but at least I'll get the interesting conversation out of it. And then I'll share it, because I had a lot of conversations off Zoom, off the record, whatever you want to call it. I'm like, you know what? I wish I could have shared that nugget of information with hundreds of people that want to listen. And I unfortunately don't have it recorded. I don't have the platform with which to share it. Let me now get rid of that excuse and start it up.
Right. And I think that what I love about that is that you had this idea and it came from a really great place, and that the intent was to share this information. And that I think that from there, you were able to create this podcast. And so I think a lot of people get a little wrapped up into how hard, like, this is so hard. Like, I can't do this. This is a lot of, I'm going to need gear. I'm going to need all these things. But that's not the case. I mean, you're literally utilizing, and I had the pleasure of being on, but I mean, you're using Zoom. I mean, and that's the thing. I think people go, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff, but it's not. It's as easy as using Zoom, right?
Yep. Zoom. You can use GarageBand. You can use iMovie. I did invest in my microphone. That's right here off screen. But you really don't even need to do that, because AirPods are pretty solid. And last time I checked, everyone I know owns a pair. There you go. So again, remove the excuses and just do it. And if you don't like it, that could be a thing too, for people that are hesitant on creating their podcast or video, whatever. There's a chance you don't like it. There's a chance that your business really takes off, or you switch careers, or something else happens that makes you stop, and that's okay. But at least you tried.
Yeah, and I think that's super key, because that is always half the battle right there. I mean, not so many great ideas just die right out of the gate because that next step isn't taken. Like, I got a great idea, but then you just don't try it because out of fear, out of anxiety, technology, excuses. We're human, we make excuses, but there's a way around it. And if you truly want to do it, like, you'll find a way of making it happen. And the great thing that I think one of the biggest things, most positive things that happened out of 2020 is the fact of the technology, and the technology ramped up, and everybody pushed themselves to basically adopt all these types of things to do that, to share messages, to share ideas, and communicate with each other, because we've all been cut off from one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I think that's a great thing. So where can people listen to Mission Driven or watch it? Where's a good place for them to consume your content?
Yeah. So thank you. Great question. Mission Driven is on Spotify, iTunes, and Google.
Mm-hmm.
You can set it up so that you get push notifications when it goes live, usually every Monday. And it's all there. So there's, I think, 15 episodes that are on there, very different industries, very different people, very different conversations. But in my opinion, they're all very inspired, notable conversations.
Yeah. And I will say you're very good. You ask really great questions, I think, which really get a really honest answer out of people, and I think that you spend a lot of time doing very good, thought-provoking questions.
Thanks. I do get yelled at sometimes for asking too many questions by certain people, but it's really to understand their motivation and kind of what makes them tick, what makes them interesting, because you can do video and another person I know can do video, but why are you doing it? Like, what perspective are you coming at it from? What are you looking to achieve from it? What's your goal? And that can be very different.
Yeah, and I think it is very different. And but I say I actually like that you ask a lot of questions because I think the questions are thoughtful. You know, you're not just asking questions to ask the questions. I feel like you're asking these questions and it's getting people to think, because a lot of time people need those questions to kind of, really help them along, get that thought process going. And
Yeah.
people don't always think about the things to say until they're asked. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's I enjoy it. So
Well, thank
I'm going to tell you not to stop doing
you. I have no questions about that.
it. So, a couple more questions I think about creating content before I let you go. So, one of the things too I think about creating content that I see a lot of people struggle with beyond even the content creation side of things is frequency. I think, and it's a little bit to Heather's point before, she was talking about how much information is too much, but I think when it comes to frequency of content, like I think, and I advise this a little bit differently too, but I'd love to hear your take on it, because I'm of the mindset. Well, I'll let you answer because I don't want to intrude on your answer. So,
Yeah.
what do you recommend to be the amount of content that you should be putting out on a weekly basis or even daily?
Email campaigns, I would say maybe up to 2 per week with different messages. One sales, one informational, because nobody wants to be sold to every day. You quickly click unsubscribe. When it comes to LinkedIn, I would say every day, but with an asterisk next to it, because what we do, we monitor A/B testing, morning, evening, this message, that message. Does it have an image? Does it have a YouTube link? What's involved in it? And then do those behaviors that maximize your exposure, right? Because you don't want to saturate your market and do 2 or 3, 4, 5 posts a day, because more isn't always better. When it comes to blogs, once a week, really that's the sweet spot. If you could do 2 times per week, that's even better. Because then, like we talked about, Chris, you can reuse that content in your social, in
Correct.
your email campaign, in all different kinds of things. So that doesn't have to be every day, because then if the follow-up is social, that would be way too much, because you shouldn't just
Right.
focus on your blogs.
Right. Okay. And so, yeah, what I typically recommend to people, especially if they're just starting out,
Yeah.
is really challenge yourself. Like, try to set it up at the very least, try to do 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And if LinkedIn's your jam and that's where you want to be, and you're not worried about Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or any of the other, or YouTube, then that's fine. Like, you don't have to overwhelm yourself, but pick a platform and start using it, and then at least get yourself going for at least 3 times a week. And for me, that's just trying to establish into the lifestyle, because I feel like at that point you naturally become like, oh, this is cool, I want to do more of it, and you start expanding it, and then you just naturally will get to like all the places you want to be, rather than like saying, oh my God, I got to be on all these platforms. And it's like, that's not the case. That really isn't. Like, don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. But if you do it 3 times per week, let's say you spend 15 minutes, you could do anything for 15 minutes, right? I know people that take showers longer than 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So take a shorter shower, write something for LinkedIn, but then the longer you do it, the more frequently you do it, the easier it becomes. So now that 15 minutes is 5 minutes. So what do you do with the extra 10 minutes?
Right.
Put time towards a blog, pick up a client, call your mom. I don't know.
Right. Play with the dog.
Yeah.
Listen to some tunes, get inspired.
Right.
No, but I agree 100%. I think that's really good. And I do too. And I don't know if you do this for yourself. But I schedule time every week. Mostly Mondays right now I leave it, but I use that as my content creation day. So I sort of batch. I don't batch every single piece of content I create, which people see me do during the week, but I'll try to get a lot of the bigger pieces done, and then that way I can release them. Do you recommend that kind of style of work, like a batch creation, or what are your recommendations on that?
So my process is different than what we do for different clients, right? Based on their industry and what really gets momentum.
Right.
But when you're creating content for yourself as a solopreneur with nobody on your payroll, it's all you, soup to nuts, I would say blocking out time is crucial, because again, you'll always find an excuse like, oh, I had a client book time with me. Oh, that's the only time the client can meet with you. No, that's not the only time the client can meet with you. You're just trying to create a distraction. That half-hour distraction might actually set you back 2 hours in productivity. So I think what you're doing, Chris, is absolutely spot on, to schedule that time for yourself for the week, giving yourself the permission to change the content if you need to, maybe not use it, maybe add to it, whatever the case is, but at least it's there and it's there for you. And you have that behavior being set every week. So you can count on that behavior, coming through for you in a couple of months when you may not be motivated.
Yeah, and that's what I learned. I didn't start off doing it like that. I was definitely a little bit more like sporadic and like day of, and there's still a certain amount I'll do like day of, because I just feel like, you know what, I saw something or I read something and now I'm feeling a little more inspired to do this rather than what I already had sort of created, which is fine because I'll just use it for another day in time. But kind of using that day now seems to be like the best way for me to do it, then do what I need to do for the rest of the week. So I'm not running around. Here's one more question we got here from Heather. Do you guys recommend part 1 and part 2 to content when you run too long on content? So I'm going to say episodic content. Yeah. I would recommend, and you may have a different answer, so I'll say for that kind of thing, I would make sure I let the audience know that this is part 1 and there is a part 2 coming. Mm-hmm. So if it's part of a series, I would just let people know that. I think that is, because then at least now you build anticipation for something. And so that's how I would do it if it were me running. And I think I've done series, not so much part 1 and part 2, but I'll say like, hey, this is an ongoing series of this and this and this. Yeah. But
very non-committal that way, right? So if this happen in 3 series, it takes 4 or 5, you're covered.
Yeah, exactly. So I think to me, it's a communication thing. Like, make sure the audience and the viewer knows like what they're about to watch, and tell them straight up like, hey everybody, thanks for watching. This is part 1 and an ongoing series, or this is, like Monica just said, this is an ongoing series.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have a part 3, 4, 5, or 6, you don't have to keep saying. And I made that mistake actually. I'm gonna say probably during the summer. Because I was like, I'm going to do this 10 video challenge. And I'm going to make 10 videos. And I started going, hey, here's video number 2. And I got to like video 8 and I just never finished it. And I felt like, I wish I had numbered them. I should have just said, hey, this is part of an ongoing series rather than numbering them. So I learned my lesson.
For you, Chris, did any of your audience members call you out on it? Like, where's episode 9 and 10?
No, they did not.
You know why? Because they don't care.
Because they don't care.
And I don't say that in a bad way, right? But they're not holding you accountable.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because it's quality of content. It's what you're saying at that time that, like, who cares?
Yeah, it's all that head trash. You got to get it out. Get rid of the excuses. Get rid of the trash. Just do it. That's more important.
I could not agree with you more. The mindset and getting rid of the head trash is like, create the mindset. Be the rock star, believe in yourself, let your freak flag fly and just do it. Don't look back. Right. Because it's you, it's your content, it's what you believe in. So share it for everybody to see. And as you said, whatever, put it out there.
Just do it.
Just do it. So with that, I want to thank Monica. Thank you so much for coming on and spending time and sharing with everybody and giving us some great advice. You're awesome. What is the best way for people to reach out to you? How should people contact Monica Dema and have you like totally make them into rock stars with your content skills, your content creation skills?
I think the best way is via email, monica@mdinc.co, or LinkedIn.
Excellent. There you go. So wherever you guys are watching this, especially if you're on LinkedIn right now, you can just hit the tag in the comments, wherever it is, and you can get connected with Monica. She is awesome. She's wonderful to work with. And I think that if anybody is interested in working with her, you will definitely love the experience. So with that, I want to thank everybody so much for watching today's episode of Rocket Live. Once again, if you're watching a replay, thank you guys for watching. And for everybody that's listening on the audio podcast when this is released, thank you guys so much. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on. So that way, once again, you get notified every single time we drop a new video. We do this live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you check your calendars because we go live every Tuesday with a brand new guest, dropping some gems on all of you. So thank you guys so much. Have an awesome rest of the day. And always remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.